Hey everyone, it's Keeley here for Soy and Shea, and thank you so much for joining me for today's video where we're going to do a Patreon design challenge soap. Now for this month I asked my patrons to name up to 3 colours to use in a soap, and they could be generic like red, orange, yellow, black, or they could name specific My Micro Obsession colours. Now I put all of the suggestions into a soapy jug, and the one that I drew out came from Jill, who runs Sea Tree Soaps here in Australia, and I've left links to her socials in the description box so you can go and check her out. And Jill wanted me to do a soap that was white, activated charcoal and teal, and in brackets she put Tutti Frutti, which is one of the My Micro Obsession colours, and it's a really, really nice colour. As soon as I saw this colour combination, I immediately thought of an ocean themed soap, whether it be through fragrance or the style of soap. And I decided to actually make a salt soap bar because I'm almost out of the one that's currently on the shelf, and I just thought these colours would make such a nice looking salt bar. Now salt bars, as the name suggests, do have salt in them, and they feel so luxurious and silky on the skin, and it's like having a little mini spa in the shower. The only thing I've had with salt bars is that traditionally they're meant to be made with 100% coconut oil with about a 20 to 25% super fat on them. And I always found that style of salt soap bar to be too drying on my skin, even with that huge super fat in them. So I started tweaking my recipe, and I ended up creating a recipe that still had quite a high coconut oil ratio because you need it to create the bubbles, because salt will dampen or prevent bubbles from forming in a soap bar. So you still have that sort of high amount of coconut oil, but to really bring back that stripping feeling that coconut oil can have, I also include some olive oil, some shea butter and some castor oil. The olive and the shea butter adds a conditioning effect into the soap, and the castor oil will help to stabilize the lather that is formed from all of those oils. So the customers still get the bubbles, but they don't get that stripped, clean, squeaky feel that coconut oil provides in a soap. Now when making salt bars, there are a few things to take into consideration. The first is that the salt soap bar recipes, being high in coconut oil, do tend to move a little bit quicker. So you need to make sure that you are fully prepared. You aren't going to try and make any super crazy designs. Luckily for me, my recipe does actually move a little bit slower than say a 100% coconut oil soap, but you do still need to move that little bit quicker. And the other thing is you do need to be prepared to cut soaps very quickly. If you're new to making salt soap bars, I do highly suggest making them in individual cavity molds first, so you don't have to worry about the whole cutting of them. But if you do have that little bit more experience, you can make them in loaf molds, but you need to make sure that you are ready to cut your salt bars within 3 to 5 hours of making them. My recipe typically needs cutting about that 4-hour mark to make sure that you can still get the wire cutter through the soap without it crumbling too much. Now, if you are a soap maker and you are interested in my salt soap bar recipe, this recipe is now available over on the DIY Body Care website. But with all that now being said, let's go and see how I'm going to make my salt soap bar using those 3 colors. Let's go. All right, so we are ready to start our salt bar here. So I've got my oil and my lye water down to room temperature. I do like to add a little bit of kaolin clay into my salt bars. It just helps with that really nice silky slip of the bar. So I've just poured that in. I'm going to give that a mix just to start incorporating it. All right, so we've got our kaolin clay mixed in. It doesn't appear to have any lumps. So let's now gently pour in our lye water here, and we're going to give that mix until it comes to emulsion. I'm working quite sort of cautiously on this one because being high in coconut oil and then adding all the salts and stuff, this does move a little bit quicker than most soap recipes, but it's still quite manageable if you use the correct fragrance oils. And by correct fragrance oil, I mean don't use one that is going to accelerate on you anyway. I did make a batch of my salt bar earlier in the month, and the fragrance oil I used, it just went, nah, I'm not playing, and it moved even faster than dragon's blood. I was quite literally stirring my soap when it's accelerated on me, and I was stirring them and couldn't move my spoon anymore. I've never seen a soap move so fast, and I literally had to scoop it out with my hands and into the mold. Absolutely crazy how fast this previous scent moved. I still did end up with a soap, but it was definitely not pretty. In this jug here, I have a mix of, I've actually got a flossy sea salt, which I got from off of Heirloom here in Australia. So it's kind of like a medium grain salt. I have put it through the blender just to break it down a little bit more. And then also in here, I have a slightly coarser salt. It was actually a salt that was gifted to me by a Patreon member. It's a Hawaiian sea salt, and just having the two different grades will give a slightly different texture in the soap, because it will add a slight exfoliation throughout. I am going to give that a bit of a mix in there. I like to add my salt in first just to make sure that it's well incorporated throughout all of my colours, and is fairly even as well throughout the soap. I am going to get the stick blender in there just to make sure that it is well and truly incorporated. Alright, so I've just given that a few quick pulses, and now we're going to split it out for some colour. So we've got the activated charcoal in this jug. I don't want a lot, but maybe a little bit more than that. Probably a bit more than that. I'm going to create layers, but I don't want my black to be a huge layer, because black does put a lot of people off, even though the activated charcoal is so incredibly good for the skin. Into this one, I have got that teal Tutti Frutti, and I'm going to pour a little bit more off of that one than what I've got in the black. And then into my main pot here, going to put in some titanium dioxide, and we're going to give that a mix in, because we do need the stick blender to get our titanium dioxide mixed through it. We'll also give this just a bit of a scrape down to make sure we've got all of that soap incorporated. I'm only going to work with the white for now, just in case this moves a little bit too fast with the fragrance. It shouldn't do. I do trust this fragrance, but you never know when you swap your fragrance between recipes, that can really affect it too. Alright, so we've got our white mixed through. So the fragrance I am using, it's the same fragrance which goes into my Ocean Deep shampoo bars, and I have made soaps with it before, and it's a real oceany based scent. I typically make it in like my salt bars, and in fact I haven't done it in a salt bar, I've done it in my Soul Sife bar, and I know how it behaves in that, and it behaved quite well. This is a very, very similar recipe, so fingers crossed. It's got notes of fir needles, lime. They say sea spray. It's just like basically a little bit of a salty smell. We've got some jasmine, rosewood, driftwood, and amber, and it really does smell just so beachy and ocean-like. And we're going to give that a bit of a mix. I've got a feeling it has riced a little bit. So it has actually riced in this recipe. That's very interesting, because it doesn't rice in my other ones, which is another reason, as I always say, I don't always follow people's reviews, because fragrances will react differently to different fatty acid profiles, and this one clearly doesn't like the fatty acid profile of this recipe. All right, but a quick stick blend. We've got rid of that ricing in there, and it's not too bad because we've got that salt in here anyway. We've got that slight bumpy exfoliating feel, so that's all that ricing will actually add to a soap, is a bit of mild exfoliation. And I've got some people who absolutely love it when I've had a soap fragrance that has riced. But anyhow, let's get the mold. And what I'm going to do, I've got my little feet because I actually want to create angled layers, but for now we'll start by pouring the white in, and then we'll get the angle going in just a moment, because this is actually playing quite nice. I say jinx myself, but we will actually now just pop that onto an angle. I'm going to give my bucket a bit of a scrape out. And then I will move on to I'm going to layer the black on here next. I'm just going to I know you probably can't see that, terrible angle, but I'm just going to scrape my bucket out, scrape all this in, and then we'll move on to that black. All right, so I'm pretty happy with the shape that I've got going on the white there. We're going to work with this black. So again, I'm going to pour some of that fragrance in, see what happens, because sometimes it's the colors as well that can set them off doing funny things like ricing. But no, I think, oh no, yeah, the black's not ricing on me, just that white did. Oh, soap, it constantly keeps you on your toes. I've just realized that my microphone is actually buried halfway down my apron, so you guys probably haven't heard any of that muffled talk. I do apologize. I'll soon find out when I do the editing of the video. All right, so we've got that black. That's just amazing that that has not riced. So that fragrance, I don't think, likes white. But now all I'm going to do is pour that black on there. I know you probably can't see a lot of that, but I'm just trying to make sure that it's down in the gap down there and across to the top. Let's get this one scraped out, and then we'll do the same with that blue. This black is beautiful the way that's come out. All right, I think we're suitably scraped out on the jug there. This black has played so beautifully in there. Let's get this bit cleared up because I've got drops of soap and stuff everywhere. It is, yeah, it's still quite fluid. That is absolutely amazing how differently the white and the black played there with that fragrance. Let's see what happens with the teal. We've got to give this one a really good mix just to make sure that mica is all the way through. Oh, I've just thrown a splat of soap in there. A bit violent, I guess. All right, the thing is I do want that black just to set up just a little bit more on me so we don't end up with a dip of soap. Though one of the ideas that is going through my head is to then put the hanger through it, but it really depends upon whether that white is still fluid enough so we don't put air pockets in. Let's see, let's wing it. But that is mixed in, loving that color. Let's pop our fragrance in and see how it wants to behave in the Tutti Frutti. So far so good. You can tell when something's going to rice pretty much straight away because you can see it, but not ricing in this one. So it was obviously the white that fragrance doesn't like, and usually when I've worked with this particular fragrance before, I've always worked in blues and greens and blacks and never in white. So I'll actually just make a note on the fragrance bottle that it doesn't like titanium dioxide. But that's all right. It's working beautifully in the rest of it. That is all mixed in. Let's see about getting this on here. Oh yeah, it's going to sit on top beautifully, like so. And now we've got most of that in. I am going to take it off my little angle feet, and we'll finish pouring the rest of that in there. Oh, I think this time, because usually I don't grind my salt up to a fine powder, but this time I did do half of it as a fine powder just because I wanted a slightly different feel. But I think putting that finely ground powder through here has actually reduced the volume of the soap, so it's not going to fill my mold up completely here, but that's okay. We'll work with what we've got here. It will actually be the same weight as all my other soaps, just not the same sort of height as what they are. In fact, no, that's right. These molds are actually, what do you call it? A little bit taller than my old one, so that makes sense why it's actually not filling it up. Ignore me. It is early Saturday morning and I am having a moment it would seem. These should actually be the right height. They are actually filling the mold up as they should do. That is in there. Just going to give it a bit more of a wibble wobble just to get it nice and even. Now what I did just think, just got out the hanger. Let's see. We'll find out very quickly. No, it's the black has actually set up underneath there, so we won't play. I won't put that on the top because it won't look very nice. Worth a try. Worth a try. Let's give that another bit of a shake to get it back down flat again. Ooh, I like that. Actually, no, I like that. Don't you love it when you do things on the fly and it actually, you think you've ruined it and then it comes up really nice? Look at that. Ooh, I do like that. So I've just got that little bit of black, which I'd pulled up, and I've just put that little bit of color onto the top of the soap. All right, let's stop playing with it. I am now gonna leave this sit here for about 4 hours, and then we'll be back to cut this. This is one of the very few soaps that I make where, because of that high coconut oil content plus the salt that's in here, it does mean that this will be set up in about 3 to 4 hours. Typically it takes about 3.5 to 4 hours from this recipe in my shop conditions, and we'll be able to get this cut very soon, so I'll see you for the cut. All right, it has been about 4 hours since I made this. I'm hoping I haven't missed the mark. I did go to do this about 20 minutes ago and I suddenly had all these people come into the shop and I have just been busy nonstop. I am not complaining at all. That is such a good thing. But I'm sitting there thinking, I hope my soap's okay. But oh no, it's looking good. It does actually feel quite warm as well. Let's get it out. Oh, this one is definitely looking far better than the last salt bar I made. Let's pull it out of its mold. Just going to break off the edge just there. Just put the phone on silent. Let's get all these bits out the way, and I'm going to use the single bar cutter to cut this one up. If I try and do this with the multi-bar cutter, there will be a very, very, very strong possibility of me breaking probably multiple wires. So I've got it on the cutter, and I'm going to start by cutting an end piece off here. So oh no, look, it's perfect. It's like butter. All right, there it goes. Oh, that's gonna be really nice. Now the thing with salt bars, they do tend to crumble a little bit while you are cutting them. So don't be alarmed if you are getting that crumbling on the edges of your soaps. But that is the inside. You can see I've got a little bit of crumbling there, but I absolutely love the color and the design this has come up. Sorry about that. I had a customer just come in the shop. I've got a feeling that might be a little bit too loose. We might just tighten that just a bit. That's better. You watch now, it will snap on me. I do have my gloves on for cutting this soap, even though it is actually now hard enough for me to cut, and if I left it any longer, I wouldn't be able to cut it. This still has not finished saponifying yet, so I've got my gloves on just to make sure I don't have any of that raw lye that may still, well, it definitely will still be in the soap at this point, because it does take 24 to 72 hours for the lye to be fully consumed by the oils and then no longer be present. But I am absolutely loving how this has come together, and those colors. I always associate these three colors together with an ocean themed or a salty sort of soap. So really, really pleased with it. Just going nice and slow to avoid as much damage to the soap as possible and to make sure we don't get that break. Now when I'm putting it onto my tray, sorry, I'm just Trying to think what we're doing here. I am putting it back onto the tray so that they are nice and tight together as if I hadn't actually cut it. And this is because the soap is actually still warm, and putting them close together like that will help to continue on with that saponification process. I'm going to pop them nice and close there. I'll leave them packed tightly on the tray overnight, and then I will be able to take photos and, oh sorry, I didn't show you that one. They're all the same really now, but I'll be able to do all my photos and everything and pop them onto the cure rack by tomorrow. So I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me today as I made the salt glow bar. This one will be ready towards the middle of May. It will be on the website then. If you are a soap maker yourself and you're interested in my salt bar recipe, it is available over on the DIY Body Care website, as I said at the beginning of the video. I hope you've enjoyed coming along with me today as I made the salt glow soap. If you did, why not leave me a thumbs up and any questions below. And until the next video comes out, I hope you have a good one, and I will see you then. Bye.